with a map of the cemetery.
All right, hopefully everyone can hear it. So
We will walk around.
I went to this, and all of the people with me, except for this guy that you see here, this is Hans Straver, who was our tour guide. Everyone else there with me were cousins of mine through my Nunes Vaz family. They were all, gosh, how far distant are they? I'm gonna look that up. See, I don't think you all can see that. Hopefully you can. So the cousins that were there with me were pretty distant cousins. Fifth cousins once removed. All of them were about fifth cousins once removed. Yeah, so just kind of a cool addition to it.
This is where we are.
So yeah, so he's showing a map. This is the cemetery, Beth Haim Cemetery. So the records that we were just looking at before, those burial cards, this is the cemetery where they're at. And so, you know, I'll go back.
A lot of graves. This is where we are. Dit is background voor de kennis onder jullie. Dit is de rivier. This is the oldest part. Here it started in 1640. In the red numbers are the years the first grave was on that location. So 1763 and so on. There is one location double because in the 20s of the former century this cemetery became completed. Then the question was how to solve it. To expand in this village was impossible. To move to another place was not the wish of the community. So then they decided to cover a part of the cemetery with 2 meters sand and start a new cemetery on that part. That's only this part. Then the idea was that that should be enough till the 70s of the last century. But because of 4045, the story became very different. And it is not completed yet, and it will be never completed anyway. There are about 10, 11, 12, 13 funerals a year. That's all, because the community became, because of 45, smaller. 70% of the population was murdered in the camps. And also because of what's the right English word, secularisatie. You understand? Secular. What's the English word?
Assimilation or?
No, the
secularization.
Dat je niet meer geloven. Dat je niet meer geloven bent.
I think it's the same word.
Yeah, 80% of the population in Israel is Jewish, but on a secular way.
Okay.
That's what.
Not very religious.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where
Yeah.
All right, so let's get to so he'll talk about this, but you can hear the mowing. But basically, even though you only see a few graves above ground, the entire place, it's just graves everywhere. It's just most of them have sunk below the ground. Rob, did you check the Scheppenhuliken? I did not check that yet, but I think after we finish this video, I think I might end the stream not too long after that. So keeping it not too long today.
Okay.
So these are all my cousins that you see around me. They're all Nunes Vaz cousins. And all of them live in the Netherlands. Not all of them live in Amsterdam, some of them. Mijn family. So everywhere, basically, you see that this grave is right here. There's a grave right next to it, about the same size, that's below ground, and all these just covering everywhere that you see. It's just they're all sunk below, and a lot of these graves, this is the oldest part of the cemetery, which dates back to 1614. The graves which you can see are graves that they've taken the time and all of that to raise the graves and do the proper thing to make it so it can't sink. I'm guessing it's something that has to constantly be kept up with. And, you know, part of it has to do with, unfortunately, the cemetery is very limited in their funds. You know, it's you know, most of the community was murdered in the Holocaust, and the majority of the community that now lives, or, you know, the majority of the descendants have a very distant connection with it. Very few have even visited, very few even know about it unless they even live in the area, and very few still live in Amsterdam or even the Netherlands. So, you know, there's not a big community to support it. It's, you know, it is a large cemetery, and so they basically had to choose which graves are the important ones that we're going to kind of keep up. Can you do the Acadians family tree? Not familiar with that family. I'm not sure if that's if you're talking about Acadians as in like in Canada Acadians, or if there's an Acadia family in the in this community, because I actually feel like I've seen that name, Acadia. Is it one? Oh yeah, you all can't see this the way I'm sharing things now, but I just want to see. It's the Akaton. Or I guess it's Akathon or Kathan. I don't know how to pronounce it exactly, but yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, if you're asking about Acadian family trees, or, you know, if I have a YouTuber where they have Acadian families, or if I do a stream where I do, you know, focus on someone. But yeah, so okay, so back to this. These graves are the oldest part of the cemetery, and I think he's gonna explain that in a second.
Maar de vragen,
Ja, lekker hè.
so you have to understand you're walking now on graves.
Yes.
Every inch of the cemetery you are graves. Not more than 10, 15 centimeters below the level, because the water beneath gives anti-pressure. So it's not sinking till New Zealand, only 10, 15, 20 centimeters.
Drijf is het dan? Drijf?
No, dat doe ik even in het Holland.
Ja.
Grondwater is een apart begrip.
Ja.
Dat is geen rivier die we onderlopen, maar dat is de verhouding grondwater ongeveer hetzelfde. Bagger zou je ook gewoon kunnen zeggen. Dus daar zakt die steen in, maar de tegenwaartse druk van het water zorgt ervoor dat het niet verder gaat.
Kan je dan niet zeggen modder? Modder is anders.
Ja, mud, feet, anyway.
Ja.
Ja.
Okay.
If you're drinking coffee at Bakker Out, now it's not allowed anymore, but formerly there were big trucks passing the bridge.
Yeah.
And then in Bakker Out you felt the building going like this.
Oh yeah.
That's how it goes.
Yeah. Veen, eh?
Yeah. Same.
All right, so
Not for the person here, but for us, be aware of. So if you see a grave stone like this, you can understand it's not Jewish at all, because it's not simple, it's not sober, it's opposite. This is one of the examples of a very, very rich, important businessman dealing in sugar, tobacco, and so on.
Trying to find a specific spot. We walked. I think this might be it.
Portas.
No.
Jacob Sas Portas.
But yeah,
He was one of the.
I'm trying to find.
The banning of.
We saw Baruch Spinoza's father's grave, Michael de Spinoza.
Spinoza.
Mm.
And I don't know whether you know also about the false messiah, three.
Oh yeah.
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 But this is what happens if you don't maintain the place.
So there are graves all in this area.
I will show, when we are back in the house, I will show you. I just forget it. There are maps of this part of the cemetery, and then you can see every inch are graves.
Yeah.
Yeah, you told the number of graves.
28,000.
28,000.
Now I think we're about to come up. I believe this one right here that he's coming up to, that's Michael de Espinosa. So that's the grave of Baruch Spinoza's father right here.
This grave is of the father of Spinoza.
Ah, Michael de Spinoza.
Exactly. Spinoza.
Ja, die heeft een beroemde zoon.
Yeah, who was banned out of the community.
Yeah.
He was not buried here.
No.
Now these are all of my cousins except for the tour guide, and the one cousin that you see in the, well, I was going to say the blue shirt. They're all wearing blue shirts, but in the black yarmulke, he actually was a cousin that figured out he was a cousin by DNA. So he did it through Y-DNA and through autosomal DNA testing. And we figured out quite confidently how he descends from the family. And he actually descends from, he's closer related to the other cousins that were in our group than I am to all of them. Because I descend from an Abraham Nunes Vaz, and they all descend from Abraham's brother Isaac, but through different children of Isaac. So it's kind of a cool thing. So it's like, when I was in Amsterdam and when I finally put out this Europe video, which I've been, it's literally going to be over 20, the script is over 20 pages long. And I mean, it's going to be a long one. I don't know. Maybe I'll cut it into 2 videos. It's been taking forever to write itself. It's very, very, it was a very emotional trip. A lot of connections and stuff, but also being in Amsterdam, the family that's in Amsterdam mostly are the ones that, they're there because they descend from the survivors through the war, because the majority of everyone else in the family was murdered.
Because he was banned.
En hoe weet waarom?
Hij was de liberaal.
Okay.
So
Vrij.
okay, I think this is
Ancestor, Jacob Israel Belmonte, buried in 1629.
so this list that he has. Basically, before I went, I sent them a list, or I asked them, should I send a list of the graves that I want to see, because I know not all are visible and I know that it's not easy to find everything. And they said, yeah, send, the list. And so I actually had a bigger list than this, and I cut it down because I was like, I think this might be too many. I kind of wish I'd sent more, because it ended up being there were only 2 graves that were visible. The one we're about to see, and then another one which was this Abraham van Isaac Robelace, 1802-1875, the son of Reina Montezinos, who we've been researching for the majority of the stream today. So we saw his grave, and then the grave of this ancestor, who is a very distant ancestor, and I knew his grave would be visible because he was a founder of the community in Amsterdam. So very important, and they actually, one of the older graves that they made sure was visible. So me visiting this is the oldest ancestor I've ever visited where I know exactly how I connect to them. And it's proven each generation up to Jacob Israel Belmonte for me has been proven.
Yeah, covering it with very small sand. Maybe if you film it and enlarge it later on, you can read the text.
So one of the things they do there is they put sand on the grave to make it so it's visible, which is kind of unfortunate because a lot of us that know about grave restoration and, a lot of the things that are common that people do that unfortunately can wear stones away faster. Unfortunately, it seems like that's a lot of the common things done in this cemetery. So like doing the sand and stuff, basically, even though it's very small sand, my understanding is the coarseness of the sand, when you do it over time and over time, it just wears away the stone faster. So that was kind of a common thing that they did was, this grave and the grave of my other ancestor that they'd found, they, put the sands on so we could see it. And then when we were walking around, we also saw somebody doing one of those things where they had the paper laid down and they were like kind of doing the chalk over it. And, that can kind of hurt stuff too. But then also one of my cousins in Amsterdam, she was talking about how her sister works in grave restoration stuff elsewhere in the Netherlands. And that I guess there's she has a real big issue with some of the people that are running some of the ways that they're doing some of the things at the cemetery is not very good. But at the same time, because they have such little funding, they're kind of forced into it in a sense. Technically not all of the things they do, but add sand to the list of bad things people use on graves. So all right.
Piet had
let's
wel
continue.
gelijk met zijn witte steentjes.
Waar we dit steentjes.
Mijn man zei, ja, maar de steentjes, maar mijn zus heeft ze afgeschreven gelaten.
It's
Mijn man zei,
oh yeah, so he had the
Four, here, lijntje. Hier
the cards we were just looking at, those burial cards. He printed out the burial card for Jacob Israel Belmonte.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Did I help organize this trip? Yes, I did. So basically what I did when I was in Europe was I tried to have as many family reunions as possible, in a sense.
And his
And when I went to Amsterdam, one of my big things was I had to visit the cemetery. It's not in Amsterdam. It's just outside in a town called Ouderkerk aan de Amstel, which is basically Ouderkerk, the old church on the Amstel River. And it's right off the Amstel River. And the way they bring the bodies down to the cemetery is the synagogue was in the city. And then they would take it down. They put the body on a boat, and the body would travel down the canals to the Amstel River, down the Amstel to the cemetery. So when I set this up, basically, I messaged all my cousins in Amsterdam and said, "This is when I'll be there. If you want to go, let me know, and we'll go ahead and make sure we can do that." And they didn't really give me a limit of people, but all the cousins that said they wanted to go came. And so it wasn't a whole lot of us, but so did that. And then I also, the Friday of that week, went to Esnoga to have do services there, and I went with one of my Nunes Vaz cousins.
wife buried?
Yeah.
So all right, we're gonna fast forward a bit.
Quite exactly.
So, but okay, so kind of here you can kind of see on the ground how it looks like the grass is kind of dead here and there. You can see the graves, and at certain parts, even though there's grass, you can see the outlines of all of the graves that are all around. And as I was walking through the cemetery, especially this part, let's see.
I was when we were this ancestor.
This is Litter Robot, the highest
Another
rated
ad.
self-cleaning litter box that
Another ad.
Jacob Israel Belmonte.
That part was
No, the cemetery was founded in 1614.
Okay. So it's a very large cemetery. And there you can see now that's not that's like an offshoot of the Amstel River.
Ja. Ja. Ik wacht even, niks tot jullie binnen gehoorsafstand zijn.
Ja, ik hoor.
Oké, mooi. Dankjewel. In 1600, Amsterdam, of course, in miles was the same distance as today, but in those days it was far from Amsterdam because there were hardly any roads. Between Amsterdam and Oudekerk, there were slums and rivers and lakes, Slotermeer, Watergraafsmeer, look to the original names. So it was very hard to reach. And that's why most of the funerals from Amsterdam came to Oudekerk by boat. On this location. This location also exists since 1620. And then the last ceremony was in this house. And originally it was the Metejaar house. And that means the ritual washings, is that right?
Yeah.
Were done at this location until it was not allowed anymore because of the Dutch law. But it's still in use, this building, for the last 7 rounds around the body. I think it's open.
Look at the key that he uses to open this door. It's so so cool.
Inside you feel the Portuguese atmosphere.
Yeah. And sand on the floor.
Yeah.
To me, it was amazing thinking of how many of my ancestors had been in this room both while alive, in terms of, you know, when they were there for the burial of their relatives and friends and ancestors, you know, all of that, but as well, how many of my ancestors had been in there alive and when they were dead before their burial. Because this, you know, as he said, the majority of the bodies, before they were buried, they would go up through that gate from the river to this house, and this was the last burial area. So it was just like, you know, for me, all of the family history stuff that I had done, you know, especially as an American Jew, it basically was like, okay, 1880s sort of, you know, thing, you know, with the New Jersey synagogue for my family that was built in 1887 to Firth Israel, kind of being the oldest thing that I had ever really experienced, which was very cool, but it's like one very specific side of the family. Whereas then with this was my first real experience of like dating back to the 1600s. You know, this, I don't know exactly when this house was built, but it was built sometime in the 1600s. And the last ancestor of mine to be buried at Beth Haim was my third great grandfather, Raphael Nunes Vaz, in 1899. So for 300 some odd years, my family, well, I guess 250-ish or so probably, my family, my ancestors and relatives and all that had gone through this building dead and alive. So it was kind of like one of the, I mean, I guess the whole cemetery and the synagogue and everything I did on this trip was kind of like that, but it was just crazy to think about for me, you know.
It's all handmade. Yeah. You see? Yeah. So this is probably a new one. Yeah. So those cliffs are over maybe 400 years old.
Yeah.
Wow. But they do replace some of them.
Yeah, the bird or the stone or the wind.
Yeah.
You see this is also over.
So a glass pane from built or made in the 1600s. I'm literally looking through the same glass pane that my ancestors hundreds of years ago had looked through. To me, I mean, that stuff's just so cool.
The difference between old and new.
In those days, they had, of course, different techniques. That's why it was done by hand.
Gonna jump to where we find.
Between the rough in
I'm Duke, and I know that finding the right home repair contractor
I'm Duke.
isn't easy.
Between the bushes.
exact. Ja. En als je goed kijkt, ik zie er misschien ook dat ik niet vaak loop, je ziet de lijnen van de straat.
Ja, precies.
Then one is starting near the river, and Rafael Nunez Vaz and Simcha Querido are at 7 and 8.
Heb je nodig? Ja.
Our shared ancestors.
So somewhere between the rough,
Between the bushes.
So those trees you see, that's kind of the edge of the river. So what he was saying is grave number 1 is at the river, and coming forward each grave, my ancestors were graves 7 and 8. So Rafael Nunez Vaz and Simcha Querido being those ancestors, which everyone within my group, we all descended from those ancestors. So their burial is somewhere within that.
Oh.
Chillen. Voor die vrouw.
Ja.
Die vrouw in de zon. Wie moet dat doen dan? Kunnen wij komen vrijwilligers?
Ja, een beetje schaar.
Ja? Nee.
sometimes in winter it's more reachable, but year after year, because it's not maintained, the laag, it's becoming
Maar
sicker
mogen
and
wij
sicker.
vrijwillig om die voorouders vrij te maken van de grondletters?
Now, we have traced a few graves 5-6 years ago, but 2 years later it's covered again.
Gaat heel snel.
It was uncovered.
Sorry?
It has been uncovered recently, or
No,
can we do it
Winter,
ourselves?
in de
No?
winter.
Ja.
Ja, ik vroeg het ook. Ik vroeg het ook, Tom.
Yeah, my one cousin was like constantly like, "Could we come in and do this? Could we clear this stuff?" And I was totally with him. I was like, "Yeah, let's have a family reunion at the cemetery where we clean it all up, or clean up huge portions of it."
in de winter heb ik hier wel eens graven opgezocht, want ze liggen hier, dat zie je aan de
Ja.
kleurtjes,
Ja, precies.
only a few centimeters.
Yeah.
So if you can count exactly line 23, stone number 7, it's rather easy to clean.
Yeah.
But year after year it's becoming more difficult.
Okay, so this gives a really good idea, a better idea of, so like there, like you see here, there's this grave, and then there's 2 graves in between that have sunk below, but then there's these, so everywhere the graves are like this, and this is kind of the Sephardic tradition of not kind of, where you have that vertical headstone, it's that horizontal sarcophagus style headstone.
But this is an example of
So, and then another area where some of our
Every
ancestors are
single-
buried.
Montesinos, Isaac Robles. Over there.
So who we were just researching in today's
This is
stream,
24,
Reina
1824.
Montesinos,
Yeah,
she's buried
Here is-
somewhere in here.
Daniel Espinosa, Enrique Pimentel.
Yeah.
Montesinos, Isaac Robles.
Ja,
Are
of
all,
hier is
all
een
somewhere on this field.
Kun je nog één keer...
So we were looking at a lot of records for the people he just mentioned, and they're buried somewhere out there in that vegetation.
Ja, en dan kan je nog één keer...
Hier. Montesinos.
Jarrett, is the same tradition carried over as far as headstones from North America for Sephardic graves? I think it varies. The Sephardic tradition in America was kind of different because,
Die lag toch daar?
Ja.
at least for a lot of other communities, it was very hard to get into the community, whereas in America it was a lot easier. And so some of the other communities, like in Amsterdam and London, kind of didn't look at the American communities in the same way, at least in the US. Some of the communities like Suriname and Jamaica, a little different. But I want to say most of the like Suriname, Jamaican communities, that's where you see more of the more traditional stones. And in the US, you see them kind of taking more of a typical American
Yes,
style with things.
Yes. Yes, I have.
Did you find names? I did. Some 6 or 7.
This is to show a small example between all wheat and plants. This is the reality. So we've cleaned a small part to show you what is inside
underneath?
underneath.
All the green.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
On 1824, there is a Reina of Raphael Montesinos.
Who we've been researching.
By
Now this isn't her. This is just another Montesinos.
Yeah.
Rachel,
Montesinos.
daughter of Benjamin Montesinos.
Oh no,
So,
it's a woman.
so probably close family of
Mm-hmm.
the Reina where you were looking.
Okay, so this grave, this is Abraham Robles, the son.
I found Abraham van Isaac Robles.
Yes.
Oh. Gonna have to mute myself. Hopefully you all can hear.
Oh wow!
Hard to read.
Here lies the.
Nee, heel interessant.
Als het geregend heeft, is het helemaal dramatisch hier.
Yeah.
So sometimes, if you enlarge it on your computer, you can read the words.
Yeah. This is my 4th great grandfather.
Really?
His daughter, his daughter Reina Robles, married Rafael Nunes Vaz.
The one that kicked him out of the house. Yeah.
Yes, and then they moved to London, so he's the last of this line.
Okay, sorry, that was a call I had to take. But hopefully what I was saying in the video was interesting enough. So yeah, so I wanted to show that. So all right, so I thought that was pretty interesting. Got that out. So just to kind of jump back to just since we just saw all that, just kind of show it. So Reina Montesinos, Isaac Robles, and the grave we were just looking at was Abraham Robles. And then his daughter Reina died in London. And I need to spend some time figuring out where she's buried, because I think I figured it out years ago and then I forgot to put it down. And when I went to London, I remember I kind of had a lot of issues trying to find having time to go to see cemetery stuff while in London. But yeah, so